CISA has a pretty laser focus this year on three critical areas of election security. The first, of course, is cybersecurity. The threats that we saw going back to 2016 really haven't gone away, and in fact, they've gotten a little bit wider and more pervasive. But we have really worked on resilience in that sector, so we'll continue that work in cybersecurity. The second area is physical security threats, and these are both threats to polling places and election offices, as well as the physical security of our election officials and voters and the like. And then finally, dis, and malinformation is really an area that we've seen a lot of activity in the last 5-6 years from both foreign adversaries and domestic partners who would like to undermine people's confidence in the election system. So in 2022, that's really where we're focusing our efforts.
Can we come back to the first one for a moment? It's interesting that cyber threats are more pervasive than in the past.
Well, and maybe I'm overstating some of it, but they haven't gone away, and the threats that we saw in 2016, like Iran trying to get into our voter registration systems, our voter registration databases. Iran and China still are seeming to have some of that activity. We're seeing it, and I've seen it since 2018 and 2020. But we also are seeing an uptick really across the spectrum of IT, not just in elections, of ransomware. And that seems to be a threat that was here before, but I think we're seeing much more activity in the ransomware arena, and it's hitting county governments, local governments, and certainly has a potential for election offices. So it's always evolving, always changing, and we just try to prepare our election officials in ways that they can try to prevent it and detect it if it happens, and then if it does, having a response plan and a plan to recover. Well, one of the things that's really nice about the work that we get to do is President Obama and then President Trump designated our elections system as critical infrastructure. So what that means is that the 8,800 election offices across the country, state and local offices, can now get our resources at the federal government, like vulnerability scans, where we can come in and test the systems to see if there are any weaknesses and give the owners, operators, ideas of ways they can secure it and protect it. We have created the Election Infrastructure Information Sharing and Analysis Center, the EIISAC, and this is really the platform we use to share information about threats that are happening across the election community across the country. And it's real-time information that can be shared with our federal partners and other state and local entities. And again, it's just one more way to combat the threats that we're seeing in the cyber arena. We have a host of training, not only training toolkits and activities that we can do, like a tabletop exercise, where we can come into a state with local election officials and have them really work through awful scenarios of bad things that can happen on election day and test their response plans and make sure that they're ready and know who to call if things happen, if something happens and they need to have assistance at either the state or the federal level. And then we also have a lot of resources that we create, like how to do a remote control startup page. How can you start something to combat the dis, and malinformation that is out there about elections and voting? So we give them all sorts of resources that way that, quite frankly, some of the election offices across the country just don't have the resources to create. If you're a large jurisdiction like Los Angeles County elections and you're Dean Logan, you have a lot of staff and you have a lot of resources. But if you're Heidi Hunt in Adams County, Washington, with 2 staff members, and you still have all of the requirements that Seattle, King County, Washington elections department has, you really need that help. And that's what we really are here to provide, is help bridge that gap for those medium and small sized jurisdictions.